Hello, everyone, and welcome to Master Your Application for MBA by the Changemakers Society. I'm Sakshi, one of the moderators for today. First of all, thank you for the great response. Our Placement Tale series and Master Your Application for Master's degrees received such positive feedback that we couldn't wait to conduct our talk on applying for MBA. We sure hope that you all get some solid takeaways from the speaker's stories and experiences, which can serve as a motivation or pep talk to get you guys started on your journeys. The reason we really want to conduct this session was because the whole process of deciding to deviate from engineering can get very overwhelming. After we conducted our previous talk on pursuing masters, we received several requests for hosting the same for MBA too. When to start, when to apply, where to apply, should I work first or directly apply for an MBA? All these questions haunt us every day. So there's no one better to guide us than our very own seniors who have gone through the process and have achieved success in the same. We at CMS hope that interacting with these seasoned and experienced alumni who have pursued or are pursuing an MBA can make the process less overwhelming for you. Today, we have some brilliant speakers to help you out and answer all your doubts. Before handing this over to Smriti, here's a disclaimer. The speakers draw from their own experiences and will explain everything as accurately as possible according to their knowledge and understanding of various fields. Over to you, Smriti.
Thank you, Sakshi. I welcome you all once again to Master Your Application for MBA. I'm Smriti from the Changemakers Society. I'll begin the session by introducing the panelists. Our first panelist is Ashwin H, who graduated from PS University in 2019 with a BTech in Electronics and Communications Engineering. He's currently working as a network consulting engineer at Cisco Systems and will be pursuing his MBA from IIM Ahmedabad in the upcoming batch of 2021-23. Our second panelist is Shruti Shekhar, who graduated with a BTech in Electrical Engineering, followed by a master's degree in Product Design. Shruti started her career building DNA sequencers in Singapore. After this, she took up NPI project management in PCBA manufacturing and then managed IT operations for FMCG clients. Currently, she's pursuing her MBA at IIM Ahmedabad. Our third panelist is Disha Dinesh. After graduating from PES in 2015, she took a step back to assess her career path and decided to transform her childhood passion for writing into a career. She explored the path of being a copywriter and reporter before finding her love for marketing. After 3.5 years as a marketing associate at DrumUp, a SAS offering startup, Disha pursued her PGPM from ISB. She now works as a marketing manager at Zeta, a company offering modern and embeddable banking solutions.
Thanks, Smriti. Thank you for all of the introductions. And now that we know our panelists, let's start off the session by listening to their journeys. Over to Ashwin.
Hello. First of all, thank you for having me here. I'll talk about my MBA journey, the MBA journey technically hasn't started. I'm going to talk about my lead up to that and how I got an MBA seat at one of the best institutes in the country. All right. So when did I start? When did I decide to do an MBA? All right. So I come from a well-educated, albeit middle-class South Indian family. So doing a master's was something that I was for sure going to do. So, I mean, I was not going to stop at a BTech level for sure. So once I joined in, the first thing I wanted to understand was where my interest lied. Look, when I did BTech, it was purely because that was the best path forward. I am, what do you say? I'm good at math, I'm good at physics. I took engineering, and then I wanted to figure out where I go. So I joined in as a mechanical engineer in my first year. I came to know the placements are really bad there, so I switched to electronics at the end of the first year. So I had a good GPA. I made sure I studied well because I didn't want to, keep up the kind of failures I had before. So once, I think a year and a half in, I wanted to explore all the fields I had because electronics wasn't really exciting me either. So I did my minors in management just to see, different possibilities. It was quite interesting. I enjoyed marketing. I loved finance. So I thought, okay, maybe this is a path I can look forward to. Around the end of my second year, I did a internship at GE Healthcare. I was for sure now that I'm not going to do R&D or any of that. Uh, so it was more eliminating options at that point. And then third year, I decided, okay, I'm going to prepare for CAT. The reasoning there was I wasn't good at technical, so GATE was out of the option. It was either CAT or a GRE for me if I'm going to do a master's later on abroad. So I prepared for CAT because technically CAT is tougher than a GRE or a GMAT. At least that was a saying then. I'm not really sure because I've not taken GRE or GMAT. So I started preparing for around mid third year, and then my MBA kind of consolidated later on because I did an internship in Cisco in the supply chain operations side. It was very interesting. I did a lot of data analytics, operations, core operations. I worked on my final semester. I did an internship with Goldman Sachs uh, operations. Again, it was fun. Finance operations, all of that was fun. Cisco gave me an offer to come back as a network consultant. So this was a customer facing role, which is very exciting. So I rejected a Goldman Sachs PPO and came here, which I'm not sure if was the right choice at that point, but it just made sense. MBA per se, attempted CAT the first time in my final year. I got a 99.36. I studied for over a year at that point, and I was very confident that I do really well. But a 99.36 for anybody who knows about CAT is insufficient, especially since my CATs wasn't great. I had 80s, 84, 86, 84 in 10th, 86 in 12th, and 8.8 in grad. So the competition is such that unless you have 90 plus in 10th, 12th, and grad, you have a poor academic profile. So I joined Cisco and I decided to attempt again. Then I took up CAT 2019, which was, well, an amazing experience. I ended up with 100 percentile. I got calls from all the top B schools. I ended up converting most of them. I got into IIMA Ahmedabad, which was my first choice. I decided to defer for a year. COVID was one of the reasons, but I had a few more reasons. I was enjoying the work I did. So I'd be joining in July probably this year for a 2-year MBA program. I think that's pretty much it about my lead up to the journey.
Thanks, Ashwin. We have a lot of questions to ask, and so do the other streamers for sure. But we'll get to that later. Over to Shruti.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. So my journey. I am probably the oldest panelist here. So I graduated way back in 2010 from PES. I did my bachelor's in electrical and electronics. And this was the year when I think this department had just started. So there were lots of fun times there. Why an MBA? I always knew I wanted to do an MBA. People in my family were. I knew that, business and the non-tech side of things had always had an interest for me. But I knew that wouldn't be something that I did straight out of college. I always wanted to work in the core sector, gain some technical experience and have a very solid foundation there before I moved on to doing anything in business. So I graduated in 2010. I completed a master's in product design from Nanyang in Singapore. Worked at a manufacturing firm there, and we were building medical devices. From there, I made sure that I grew in my career. So I moved from engineering to project management. Eventually, I moved back to India in 2018. And there I started working for, very hard to get a core manufacturing role in India in high precision. So I changed streams and went back to IT. But here I was helping factories do their ID for their operation lines. Somehow managed to keep my tech roots intact. And that's when I decided to apply for an MBA. Knowing that I was going to be in India, I only looked at the Indian schools. And so I applied to your regular A, B, C, and ISB and got accepted in A. And that's where I am. So I'll be finishing my 1-year MBA at IIMA in April, in another month and a half this year. So yeah, that would be all. Do you want me to add anything more?
Thank you, Shruti. Let's move on to Disha.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me on here. So I'll try to, summarize my story. Um, I can kind of relate to what Ashwin said when, we all take engineering because that's what you do in India. If you score well, they say you have a future. And I really like biology because I took PCMB in my 12th and I wanted to retain that in some way. And I knew I could not become a doctor for some reason. So I decided to do biotech engineering. And through my BTech, the intent was to explore the field as much as possible and see, if I can find an area that interests me and I could carry on in that area as in my career. So every break, I think at PAs generally they push you to do a lot of internships and projects during your coursework, which is really great. So I did a little bit of that as well. But in that final semester where you do like a long internship, I sort of realized that I loved talking about biotech so much, but going to the lab every day and working was something that just did not work for me for some reason. It was very heartbreaking to give that up, because we have great faculty at PES and I felt like I would be disappointing people. But at the same time, I knew I couldn't work in the lab every single day. So what I could fall back on then was my writing, which is something that I always enjoyed and had, as a hobby. So I tried to figure out, various career paths that a writer could, like various ways in which you could make money by writing. One could be as a journalist or as a copywriter as an agency and at an agency. So I tried these various paths and, somehow it led to marketing at a startup. And I really absolutely loved that. So I stayed there for 3.5 years until they sold the product to someone in the US. And then I thought it was a good time to take a step back and probably do my master's degree, which is something again that I always wanted to do. I After that much experience, I just wanted to do like a quick master's, and I also wanted to stay in India. So ISB was one of the only schools that I applied to here, and I applied to a couple of them in Canada as well. Did not want to go to the US because of the political climate and all of that, uncertainty there is. So yeah, that's how I ended up at ISB. It was a terrific journey there, and yeah, so that's all I have to say at this point.
Wow. Yeah, it's nice to have panelists with such diverse backgrounds and reasons for having to taken up an MBA. And it's exciting from where we'll go from this. I think one of the first questions we have, the most asked question is, I want to get into an MBA and in an IB, while my second option would be consulting. Should I rather pursue masters focused on IB or MBA in finance? Should I repeat the question? Was I audible? Okay.
Any of the panelists can take this out.
Yeah.
So let me give this a stab. Let me work it a little backwards. Depending on where you are, do you want to do go into IB in India or internationally? What matters is how many organizations come. So from the Indian context, I know that I'm not too sure about ISB, but A, B, and C, and that too only in the PGP course, which is the 2-year MBA, which you do almost straight out of college. You would have at most in a year 20 or 30 offers to go into IB, right? And this is because you don't need so many investment bankers. So there are very few offers made in this field, in India at least. And for that, you would traditionally do it through a B school in India. I do not know of a master's in finance degree where IB roles are offered. Now, I could be wrong. Please do your research. I don't have too much information on this. If you want to do it internationally, also then I think you can go through either route. You can do your master's in finance or you could do your MBA. And it's quite possible that a lot of foreign universities allow you to do this kind of a dual degree where you get maybe a master's in management along with a master's in finance as a specialization, which could make you a little more attractive to a lot of these banks who want you to do investment banking. But like your big four and like consulting, investment banking also comes with its own brand and tag. So the better the university you go to, or the better the degree you have, the more chances you have of being offered a job in IB. So I hope that clarifies some of it.
Thank you, Shruti. That was really insightful. So our next question is, what are the different options available for MBA aspirants? If you could explain this as if to someone who doesn't know anything about MBA, that would be great. So first we'll have Ashwin and then we'll have Shruti talking about it. Thank you.
All right. So look, when I did my research, like this is in college, as to what kind of options are available. Two, like Shruti said, you have one in India, one abroad. See, abroad also you have an MIM, the Masters in Management, or an MBA. An MBA typically requires at least 2 years of work experience. An MIM, you don't really require work experience as such. In India, again, the MBAs, which we have the 2-year PGP courses, are you have mix of people, but in general, you have lesser work experience. If you look at a PGPX or the ISB PGP, which is requires at least X number of, I think ISB requires at least 2 years, and I think the PGPX requires at least 4 years, 3 years. Okay, yeah, 3-4 years. I'm not really sure. You have people here who can explain better. But so that's how it works. In India, especially, the 2-year MBAs generally have lesser number of work-ex. From what I understand, the median work-ex is around 18 to 20 months, varies per college. For example, IIM Bangalore will have a higher median work-ex, and IIM Calcutta will have a much lesser. So you'll have to make that decision also based on the fact of what kind of job you have. In my case, I had an offer 1 year in. I decided to defer it for another year because of the work I had. I was really enjoying the job I had, and it brought in a lot of value. If that wasn't the case, I probably wouldn't have deferred. I would have joined last year. In fact, when I started out, I wanted to join as soon as possible. So your priorities will depend on you, and then you take a call. But these are the basic options you have. There are a lot of B schools out there which will give you specific courses also. For example, an IIM Kozhikode will give you an MBA in finance or an MBA in L&M. That is, I'm sorry, you'll have to do your research. I don't remember the names exactly, but there are a lot of different courses out there. You'll have to do your research and see what you like or what you want. But these are the broad ones. These 4 are the broad areas you should be looking at. I mean, these people can explain better about the more experienced ones.
So, all right. So everything Ashwin said is perfectly true. I'm just going to bring in a slightly different perspective. So like he said, now globally, remember that an MBA is something that is done with at least 3 years of work experience, and you need to have that you have to have that at least 3 years of work cutoff for a college to be recognized as somebody giving you an MBA degree. So the Indian courses, the 2-year courses that you do fresh out of college, globally are considered equivalent to a master's in management because of the lack of experience of incoming students. And so the outcomes that you are getting from both of these, so you have college degrees which are less than 3 years of work ex, and then you'll have ones that are given for people who have more than 3 years in other words. So the PGPX, the EPGP in Bangalore, and the equivalents in Calcutta and all the other IIMs, as well as the ISB's PGP, are meant for people with a significant amount of work experience, starting at 3, but this goes up to 10, 12, 15 in some cases. And so there's a difference in what you get and a difference in what the market looks for people who are graduating from these courses. A big reason why your PGPs are very popular, both with students and recruiters, is that at the end of the PGPs, you have a bunch of very, very smart people coming out with some very good skills that colleges pick out. During the placement season, your industry will choose you and kind of be able to mold you into what they need for their organization. People like me, on the other hand, who are doing an MBA after a good 5-6 years of working, get picked on to be industries don't pick us to mold us into what they need. We pick industries that suit us and are very clear about where we are going with our career and exactly what we want to do. So it is that difference on a kind of knowing where exactly you want to land up, whether it's in terms of the kind of the job and kind of the role, or it is in terms of the kind of company I want to get into or the kind of industry I want to get into. So if you're not very clear and you just want to get into a really good name brand company, then yes, do your 2-year PGP course. But if you're very clear about, hey, I want to be in this industry, I want to be in this sector, and I want to be doing this kind of strategy only, then work for a few years so that you get a feel of that industry. Then do your B school, and then you would apply only to those kind of companies, and you get into those kind of positions where there'll be a lot more welcoming of you. So that's one difference. Then, of course, if you're looking for it in terms of India to looking abroad, there would be differences. Please take a look at what the hiring policies and the immigration policies are in those countries. America is always unknown. Look at the ease of immigration in countries. So Europe is slightly easier right now in terms of immigration. You have pretty good colleges in Asia as well. So do your research over there thoroughly. I think in the rest of the questions, we can go into more details of this.
Thank you. One of the main questions we received were regarding GPAs. There are students whose GPA is, around 7.2 to 7.8, but have good original projects, internships, and other extracurricular achievements. So how much does one's GPA matter, especially in comparison with how much other work they've done throughout their course? Ashwin and Shruti, you can take this over.
Okay, so for a MBA via CAT, or is that for the 2-year courses, it's all numericals, it's all quantitative. It is what your score, your quality of engineering doesn't matter. What engineering you did, and your GPA matters more. Okay, right. So I'll talk about the process a bit. It's a 2-step process. One is your mass elimination, which is CAT, and then your selection, which comes down to a WAT and PI, or a GD and PI, right? So in your first round, your CAT has a decently good weightage, I think a 50-60% weightage, followed by you have diversity components, be it academic or gender. You have your academics, which come into play. That's your 10th, 12th, and graduation scores. And all of these have different percentages depending on the college you're looking at. And IIM Ahmedabad gives 10% weightage to your 10th score, 10 for 12th, 10 for graduation, 5 for work experience, and 65 for CAT. And then you have an IIM Bangalore, which gives around 40% weightage for academics, 30% for CAT, 20% for... I'm not really sure the percentages now. This is a couple of years ago, but that's how it works. These are large number of components which play in, and it's all numerical. So your GPA matters a lot. That said, your GPA can be compensated either via a good CAT score or via a good amount of work experience.
So if you go on my route, your GPA really doesn't matter anymore. So unfortunately, all the effort that we put into those 10 years, 10th, 12th, and then those 4 years of engineering, all of that just gets wiped off if you haven't done well at work. So, if you think you've not done well enough to get into PGP, work really hard, get into a good job, grow well, do good projects, you would very easily get into something like the ISBs, PGP, or the PGPXs and the better courses. GPAs, so yeah, it's a balance. If you have worked, say, for more than 4 years, 3 or 4 years, the importance of your scores really shrinks. So I, for example, got through by giving a GMAT, not even needing to give the CAT. that is equal. I'm not sure, honestly, if it's equally difficult or easier, but it's at least I don't think I had to worry about getting a 99.99 percentile. Even though I was globally at a 90 plus percentile, it was good enough for every college that I applied to. And I'm sure Disha will also know that, give the GMAT, it's a slightly smoother ride that way. But yeah, it becomes crucially important what you've done at work then. So it's a what you have currently, or whether you want to place a bet that you'll be able to join a company. It doesn't matter which company, but grow very well in that organization and do projects and to take on the responsibilities there that would be recognized, where you'll be recognized for your managerial MBA-ish skills. And that's what gets you your foot into the door to good colleges again in the future.
Thank you. So another question we got was, what can one do to mask a low GPA? So this is kind of like a follow-up question to the previous one, because once you have a low GPA and you want to do a two-year MBA, then what are the other paths to take to get into a decent college in India? So Disha can take this, and then Shruti.
Okay, cool. So I think Shruti answered like a good bit of that question. Especially if you're taking the GMAT and applying to the colleges that do accept the GMAT, one of the ways in which you can offset the scores that you've got previously is work really hard to score well in that test, because that sometimes makes a difference. Especially, if you get a really good GMAT score, you kind of get your profile is looked at a lot earlier. At ISB at least, it goes through the first round to the people who are reviewing applications. But beyond that, like Shruti also mentioned, your entire work profile, what you've done in the company, what your company itself does, like what you're trying to build as a solution, the the ability to take initiatives in general, both at work and outside of work, in your community. Like if you're part of these organizations that are making a difference, either socially or creatively, all of these things will make a huge, impact on your application, especially to, I can say to ISB for sure, because, they also have alumni go through the applications, and they do tell us to look for, wholesome profiles, people who have contributed in different ways. Yeah, so one, do really well on the test, like give it your best shot, and two, also during your career, do the best you can at work, and also outside of work, take initiatives in your community. So that really helps.
Okay, so Disha has covered it really well. So I'll just add a few points here. I'll give you a slightly broader picture. Uh, when, when a B school is looking at your application, what they're essentially trying to gauge is, how will this person add to my classroom? What makes them good enough, and what makes them different as well? So what do I need to know that you're good enough is that you can keep up with the academic rigor that a B school brings. Now, a B school it's really not about getting in, it's about being able to keep up with it until you get out. And especially for a one-year course, we kind of squeezing in everything that these other colleges do for 2 years into just one. So, if you're getting more than 3-4 hours of sleep at night, you count yourself very lucky. So if your ACADS are not very good, you just have to find a way to show them that when push comes to shove, I'm still an intelligent person who can keep up with a difficult course. And that can be done through a very good GMAT score, because GMAT is basically, to some extent, gauging how intelligent you are. And if you say, hey, here's a score that shows that I'm really intelligent, you've kind of made up for that. Then the second part of it comes in, that what more do I add to your classroom? What makes me different from the person sitting next to me in the same bench? Is that I like to do all of these different things, and those different things have to be very different, right? So I enjoy extreme sports. I've gone skydiving. I read a lot of books, but in the fiction arena, in a very specific place that I can really talk about. I enjoy playing these things. I volunteer to teach children every weekend, or I, along with this, play so many instruments, and I keep this up, and I've given concerts, say, in XYZ. Something that makes you different, that means that you will have a different perspective from the person next to you. And those are the things you want to highlight. So you want to tell the college that, hey, you are accepting me not because I can write very nice answers in an exam, but because I have seen so many different things and done so many different things that I am definitely going to think differently from the person next to me. And that is what you want to bring out in your application. So I'm not too sure. So the thing with the 2-year course is that you don't have too much time to do all these different things. So it comes down to your GPAs. But if you wait a little bit and I think apply a little later to different colleges, then you have ways and means of showing that you are a broader person overall.
Thank you, Shruti and Disha. So that was with respect to extracurriculars all over the course of your education to the point at which you get into an MBA course. But what about club activities and college activities during your, in this case, BTech, that actually make a difference? Like, what looks better? How much of a role does it actually play? Is it worthwhile? Is it actually something we should spend our effort and energy on? And this question is for all of you.
Let me take that. So when I was at PS, I know that I was, I hope it's still called Atmadarsha. And so I was one.
Yes, it is, yeah.
So for 2 years straight, I worked on it. And I think one of the years I was heading one of the main events. And it definitely helps because it shows that consistently you are somebody who is willing to step up and take charge of situations and handle large events. So that means handling a large number of people. It also means that your interests are diverse and you are more than just your degree and what they're teaching you at. So yeah, please make sure that you have academic pursuits and then you have non-academic pursuits as well. You want to give that all-round kind of an image.
Yeah, Disha and Ashwin can also take it.
Right. So I think, like Shruti said, this is one way in which you can show, these people skills that you have, like working with people on anything in college. It could be anything that you are interested in specifically, like even a smaller group, or even if you have the opportunity to start a group that doesn't exist, that would show that, you have the intent and you want to start something and initiate something and manage it. So the other thing is that when you do get into an MBA school, they'll have their communities as well, wherein they want you to participate and contribute. So if you've done that in the past, you can also bring that into the school that you're going to. So that always looks good on an application, is what I can say.
Ashwin, do you have anything to add?
No, I think they've covered pretty much everything about this thing. I mean, the only thing I have to add per se is, see, your club activities, the kind of PORs you have, especially if you look fresh out of engineering, if you're applying for an MBA, you have to show why you want to do an MBA. A lot of times they ask, what have you ever done? I mean, have you ever managed anything? So managing big events to an extent, if you have no internships, see, it's an add-on, right? It's showing some sort of responsibility you've taken up, shows that you can manage, either at B school or post B school, or it makes sense for you to do an MBA at all. But again, it's not, I mean, by alone, it's not something that helps, but it's more an add-on. It shows that what you claim to be XYZ, it shows that, okay, this is your proof that you're responsible. You can you have the people skills, you can manage stuff and things like that.
Thank you. So the next question is it important to have work experience before entering? And does the type of work experience matter? So once you're out of BTech, a lot of people go into technical jobs and then want to do an MBA. Does it matter, or do we have to go into the business line right out of college? Ashwin can start, and then everyone else can follow.
See, to get into a B school, it's not that important. But I'd say, see, uh, having some amount of work experience is obviously good, and you got to work in the field you enjoy. If you find you don't really like anything that you see, then you'd rather do an MBA and then explore more options. I'm not saying it's compulsory, but having a bit of work experience definitely helps. And again, you'll have to, you know, say why you want to do an MBA. If you don't have work experience, most of the time you don't have an answer for that. I struggled during my B school interviews the first time around because I had no idea why I was doing an MBA. I had done a few internships. I said I like X, Y, and Z. I couldn't say that. 8-10 months of work experience, I could say, you know what, I'm seeing that there are few issues that I should be working on if I want to be just like my manager or my manager's manager. And these are the kind of skills I need, and this is why I need an MBA. So you get that sort of an answer. Uh, Again, I don't have too much of work experience, so I really can't say, uh, you know, how much it'll help me later on either. So you probably have to ask the experts here. But it's not compulsory, no.
So one advantage that I found, doing my MBA after a few years of work ex is you face certain situations at work that you would have handled in a certain way, but once you come to a B school and you see your peers who have come from different diverse backgrounds, they all have different ways of tackling it, so you learn from them as well. And if you have like this case study based learning in at B schools, you also learn interesting ways to tackle problems that you would have faced previously. So you have that additional context to sort of learning these things. But that said, again, like Ashwin said, the advantages and disadvantages to both, and it depends on your journey. So regardless, you'll go through the same learning, but it's just this additional context that you probably have.
Uh, Perfectly and exactly what Disha said. Uh, you get this added context. It'd be like it's like when you do an experiment in high school in physics, and then you repeat the same thing in third year of engineering. You have a little more understanding of what is going on now to say that okay, that I mean, we did a very simple thing in physics in class 11 and 10, but okay, now I get that there are added details and added layers to any problem. So you have some work, you face these situations, and then you say, okay, maybe there was a better way, or maybe I handled it right at that time. Having said that, getting into B school is one thing, getting out of it is another, where you have to get hired by somebody. One is, of course, you could be entirely changing streams, channels, and all of that, in which case your work ex would not matter too much. But out of India, outside of India, so if anybody's going to do an MBA or anything of that sort outside of India, remember that your work ex and what you've done at work suddenly matters a lot more when you go in for recruiting outside of a college once you're completing your course. So most organizations think that you are a safer bet if you have had some work ex, some experience working in a corporate setting versus absolutely no experience and coming straight out of college. So depending on where you would apply and what kind of course you do, work ex can become very important to make you attractive to a future recruiter.
Right. Thank you. So, how do aspiring MBA students branch out of engineering? Like, there are a bunch of courses available in MBA, right? Different specializations. How do they? What should the thought process be ideally? How do they decide what to choose, and what's the very first step to do as soon as they're out of engineering? Disha and Shruti, take us over.
I guess this is the larger question of what you want to do in life. You sort of need to know what you're interested in, but something that will also reward you the way you want. It's like a mix of all of that. And I think someone said this before, all the internships that you do, if you can try to get as close of an experience as possible to the actual job you'll be doing, you'll be able to eliminate something that you don't like, before you reach the point where you have to accelerate it with an MBA or something like that. But that said, if you're not sure what you want to do and then you go into an MBA, during your course, if you can do as many projects or internships, possible, that would really help you, get an idea of what you should go into after that. And also because your peers come from different backgrounds and they all come from like finance, ops, marketing, all of that. Though this is one of the things that really, added to my experience. Having conversations with them, just seeing what they went through in their careers, gives you a real insight into what to expect in that space, so to say.
Tap into your networks. Now, this doesn't have to be your classmates or your seniors. This can be, I mean, we all come from large families to some extent, and we'll have some uncle or uncle of an uncle or uncle's friend or aunt's friend or something of that sort who are in many different fields. Now, it would be very hard straight out of college or at the place that you all are in right now to get do so many different kind of, you have to do at least 8 internships to be across whatever industries are right now doing well in India, which might not be feasible. So go out and talk to a lot of people. You'll find that everybody is more than happy to share their experiences and talk to you about, the pros, the cons, what a day in life is like, what kind of decisions they need to make on a day-to-day basis, what kind of skills they need to make those decisions. Is it analysis heavy? Is there some very specific training, knowledge, certification needed? How easy was it for them to switch? Did they do it post-engineering or did they do a separate degree for it? And so on and so forth. So go out and talk to people and get a feel for it. Also remember that, India is this lovely place where you don't have to be a specialist. You can be a generalist. And then you can, choose to use it whichever way you like. Coming out of a B school with a specialization is useful for maybe your first or second job outside of B school. Beyond that, again, it's what you do in those your first 2 jobs that will matter. So don't put undue pressure on yourselves to figure everything out.
Thank you. So the next question is, do campus placements help, or should we stem out of the jobs offered by the college and move on to something that we are interested in very specifically? So Ashwin can take it and then Shruti.
All right. In my experience, campus placements really helped. All the internships I had or the job I'm in right now is via campus. So it does. And see, in the end, for me, it was the other way around. My preparation for CAT, my preparation to get into a B school is what helped me get the job I got or the internships I secured and all of that. So again, it also helped me eliminate options I didn't want at all. Because when I started, thinking of an MBA, it was all IB. I want to get into Goldman Sachs and all of that. And I got into Goldman Sachs and hated the place. I realized, okay, you know what? A bit of tech is what I do need. Eventually, I came back. So yes, and your campus placements is it's really easy to get a job. The second you go out, it is much tougher. I had applied off campus also to a few places. To even get to an interview stage there is much tougher outside campus. So do make use of your campus placements, and it's always good to have a backup. This is specifically for those people who are saying, you know what, I want to do an MBA right out of college. I was one of those, and then it's not something which is sure. 4 years later, if you know you want to do an MBA, you might be easier. I don't know. Out of college through CAT, to get into a good B school, it is not easy. There is a lot of things which you don't control. So I will say having a job as a backup is a must. So do concentrate on your, placements as well.
Okay, so when I got placed on campus, it was to Infosys, and I really did not want to code. So the internships that this is of course a long time ago. I'm sure that things have changed, so maybe all the information I'm giving is irrelevant. But I think this is for people who are not too interested in going down the, get out of campus, get into a very tech job, and then basically you've done mechanical, but you're anyway going to end up in coding, and then you from there apply to B school, and then you get in and do something again different. If that is not your cup of tea, then don't worry. It is, you can always chart your own path. But yes, like Ashwin said, it's not easy. Campus placements are a very easy thing to go through because companies come to you. There is a very straightforward way of being selected. You go through at most one, maybe two rounds of interviews, and then you have an offer, and it's all done on kind of on the same day in the same place. That is very far from the real world. Real world, you would be applying, it would take you 3 to 6 months, and you would have to do at least 6 to 8 rounds of interviews with a lot of different people, and your competition is also a lot higher. But normally, when there's a real world interview, they are looking for very different things than companies who come to campus interviews. So you have to know who is looking for what and play those skills up accordingly. So in a real world interview, my advantage would have been in terms of, GPA is fine, but hey, I'm this extracurricular person who's done all these different kinds of things, and I bring different experience. Or that, I come from a very poor field, and I've actually gotten my hands into the machines and worked. So I know how this works. I know that there are differences, thresholds, tolerances, and things of that sort. Or you do what I did and just do a master's in a different place and use that as an added skill to get yourself another job. And then you move on from there. So really easy to go through a campus placement. I would second Ashwin on that. But it really depends on what you want to do in life. And there are no doors that have closed, is what I want to. If you don't get through a campus placement, there are no doors that have closed. That's what I'd say.
Thank you so much. So, Disha and Ashwin, is it important, or rather, how important is it to do internships prior to finishing your engineering degree?
So I would say in my case, they were critical because they helped me understand, spend time doing what I would end up doing, and then understanding whether or not I liked it. So that way, there's no reason why you shouldn't do an internship. I guess choosing the internship that you want to do will probably be like the harder choice. If it's not just through college, you can also like Shruti said, reach out to your network as well, all the people that you know, to do internships at places that really interest you. So if you do get that opportunity, it'll be really good to do that while you're at college.
Definitely, I believe it's very important to internships. Not just one, you get to know a kind of corporate field before you reach there. You get to know the different company cultures, etc., so that you know where you want to work. It really helps. The difference in cultures you've seen during your internship is, it's going to be the same thing when you work. Most companies, as an intern, treat you the same way they would as you would be if you joined. As a new employee. So utilize that time, speak to a lot of people, especially you see people with masters, MBAs, your managers, or that level people. Make sure you speak to them. I had a lot of conversations during my internships with people who had MBAs from Indian B schools, from B schools abroad. So that I could make my decision. They told me, people tell you different things, and then it's up to you to take which of it applies to you, right? So you get that sort of an opportunity. That networking opportunity is huge while you do an internship, because they take you. Why they treat you seriously and all of that. In the end, they're like, you're a kid there, so they're ready to openly speak to you also. So you utilize that opportunity a lot, and it also adds value. Your resume looks good because just out of college, you don't have work experience. So at that point, your internships play a small proxy. So if you've got into good companies, you've done good work. Again, 2 months, 6 months, you really don't do much work. That said, whatever you've done, make sure you can showcase that, and you'll have a small edge over people who don't have internships.
I have a follow-up question. If you both can tell us if you did your internship in the summer before fourth year or in your last sem, and in which line you did your internships, it'll help the viewers.
I'll take this. Okay. I had done three internships in college. The first one was after my second year. So that was in R&D firm. It was in GE Healthcare, in the total engineering side. It was very boring. I hated the place. It was working with microcontrollers and all that, but I didn't like it, and I realized, you know what, I'm not going in this direction at all. My second internship was after my third year. That was in Cisco's supply chain ops. So it was a totally new field. Again, if everybody was an MBA there, so it was a lot of learning opportunity on that side, and that's when I consolidated. You know what, I'm doing an MBA for sure. But and then my final semester internship was at Goldman Sachs, again in the finance ops side. So learnings per se, all of them, I mean, the amount of work you do is very less. You get small projects, or if you're lucky, you get to do business as usual stuff. But again, most of these firms will not give you very hard stuff. It's something you can do for sure. It's about how much enthusiasm you show. You end up getting offers from there. You might want to come back and work. So you get that kind of a choice other than just waiting for campus placements. That's a big advantage as well.
So I did a couple of projects on campus itself. So I don't think V. Krishnamurti sir is still the HOD of biotechnology, but he was back then. And he gave us the opportunity to make paper on campus, and we also had this electronic nose that would sniff cheese and tell its constituents, and like a lot of interesting things are happening on campus itself, where you might get an opportunity without having to reach out too much to just understand how working on those kind of things would be like. Apart from that, I know that our college has a pretty strong relationship with the Indian Institute of Science. So back then, I was sort of interested in neuroscience. So I worked in the department there on genetic engineering for these certain vectors to study Parkinson's as well. So if you want to go into R&D, I would suggest go to these kind of institutions and actually do the research there, because what I had imagined to be as research, it was very romanticized in my mind, but the kind of work that you have to do on a daily basis is, you get to see that difference and understand if it's really for you or not, because it's a long path after that into R&D, like a lot of commitment. So in general, whatever you're interested in, we've been saying, explore and see what it actually feels like. Yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, thank you. How does the deferred system work?
Thank you. So the next question.
Smriti, yeah, sorry. I think there was a lag, sorry. How does the deferred system work, Ashwin?
All right. So again, I'm talking only about two schools which I know very well of. Among the IIMs, IIM Ahmedabad is the only college which has this option where you can defer your admit for a year or two, so that you gain a little bit more of work experience. So, like you've already heard, right, that the 2-year MBA course tends to have lesser amount of work experience. And so, if you're a fresher with a job and you have an IIMA admit, you can defer your admit for up to 2 years. If you have 1 year of work experience, you can defer it by 1 year. So the only caveat there being only 10% of the batch gets this deferred admit option. So last year, up to last year, that is up to the COVID scene, there were maybe 10, 15 people who tried out of a batch of 400. But last year, there were 80 applicants and 40 people made it. So from last year, probably that deferred system's been used more. ISB also, I believe, has a deferred option, a 2+2 thing. So that I'm not too sure about, but I know they have a deferred option. So again, all of this, the point about having a deferred option is that one, you should have a job, or you should have at least an offer, and your defer should be for work reasons only. And obviously, you have to show that your work will actually add value to your MBA when you join it later.
Thank you, Ashwin. The next question is, when should one start preparing for CAT? and GMAT. So if Ashwin could take CAT and Shruti could take GMAT, then we'll proceed from there.
Okay. CAT is not a very tough exam. It is basically aptitude, but the tough or the difficult part is the competition. So you're facing a lot of competition, and in the end, these schools, CAT is a major portion. Yes, but there are also other parts of your profile which comes into play. Like I said before, uh, if you have a very good profile, you have diversity, you have work experience, you have good academics, then you don't need such a high CAT score. This is just for background. So, my profile per se was pretty poor in quantitative terms. So I required a really good CAT score to make it. So once I realized that, I started preparing very early. I think around mid third year I started preparing. So I prepared almost an entire year. My first attempt was mid fourth year. So you can start attempting CAT right from mid fourth year. So that is your first attempt would generally be in college. So that, and plus you get more time to study in college. So I prepared for a year, but so again it was broken up three parts of preparation. The initial phase where you really have to solve a lot of questions, go through basics. See, again, it's aptitude in the end, right? Mathematics, which you study till 12th. If you read a lot, English is a flyby. And then there's LRDI, this logic, reasoning, and data interpretation, which again most of us engineers are good at. So it doesn't take much time; it just takes a little bit of practice and attempting a lot of mock papers. So uh, it depends on where you stand. So I wouldn't give you an exact time frame. I know people who have attempted CAT with they've just written 2 mocks and they've attempted CAT and they've got really good scores. I've seen people who've prepared for a year and a half. But I think a year should be enough uh, because your preparation would be maybe 3-4 months, and then mocks which will take you probably 5-6 months. So that's how much I would say in terms of time. Again, it is dependent on people. So that's something I have to tell.
So, from the sound of it, I think preparation for a GMAT is very similar to a CAT. GMAT has 2 segments, right? Your quant and your English. There is, of course, a writing segment, and there is also now a new thing called integrated reasoning, which wasn't there a few years ago. Good thing about GMAT is that your scores are valid for 5 years. So I would recommend that if you all can do it during college, because like Ashwin said, you have more time to study and practice giving these exams during college. You can give it now, and you can get your requisite 3-4 years of WorkX and then apply with a good GMAT score, because your GMAT scores are, like I said, valid for 5 whole years, as long as your colleges accept them. So that would be something I'd recommend, that get done with it now. Again, GMAT it comes down to, so most of the concepts you're using in answering these exams are things you've learned in school, not even in college. So you'd have learned these up to class 8 or something like that. It's all about being able to do it very fast. And the entire GMAT exam is about being able to think critically. So it's not about being able to apply a formula and getting the answer as fast as possible. It's about seeing that there is a math beyond the formula and getting it right. So whether you think of it as a trick or whether you think of it as a hack, you have to just get very familiar with doing that. It has to become a second nature to do it. And then you answer these exams. And so it comes down to, and I'd say the same, maybe 3 or 4 months of prep, and then just practice. And then as and when you're familiar with it, you can give it. The good thing about the GMAT, of course, is there is no one time of the year you need to give it. You can give it at any time, any place, at any point. Don't like your score, you have to wait, I think, 1 month, and then you can give it again. And then your score lasts for at least 5 years beyond that.
Thank you. So the next question is, what does an ideal resume look like while applying to Indian MBA colleges? Shruti can take this up.
I don't have the perspective of a fresher, but I'll just give you mine, and then y'all can add subtract to it depending on yours. So your score matters in comparison to the number of years of work experience you have, and of course, how good the college is. So, so if you take the GMAT, you would need to have. So if I have less than 10 years of work ex, my GMAT score better be quite good. If I have less than 3 years of work, say less than 5 years of work ex, it has to be really, really good. So in the GMAT, you would target at minimum to have like a 93 percentile, which would work out to about 7 out of the scale of 800. You need to have like a 720 minimum. If you have very few years of work experience. If you have 10 plus years of work experience, then your GMAT kind of becomes not so relevant. So then even a 650 odd score will be enough. Now, so that just becomes your threshold entry barrier to be considered for an application. Then on top of that is your work experience. It's not about, yes, what exactly you have done to some extent matters, but it's more about where you started and now where are you at. So if you joined as an engineer and you're still only an engineer, will not look as good. But if you've joined as an engineer and in 3 or 4 years you become a senior engineer, you become the lead or you become a specialist, something of that sort will look much nicer. In most, diversity is a very important thing. So, and I'm not talking about gender diversity, I'm talking about, so we have a lot of engineers in the country. I think more than any amount of engineering that is being done, really. So if you are doing something different, like if you're in media or if you're in communication, if you're already in marketing, advertising, and something different from your normal or the mass market jobs, you would be given automatically a higher preference there. So that comes down from your work experience, which is normally the next big criteria. Then they look at you as a person. So how well articulated are you? You submit essays to most colleges, and in those colleges, how well have you put your points across? Do you have a different way of thinking? Basically, what makes you unique as a person is what they look at. Are you well traveled? Are you how different things you've done? Are your hobbies different and varied? What kind of awards and recognitions have you received through your career, through your academic life and things of that sort? What kind of different things you've done? So your diversity factor, your work ex and work growth, and of course your score. So these are normally the three major components that make up a profile. The largest and most important part of it is your work experience. Your GMAT score is just a threshold, it's like a cutoff that is applied to you basis on the number of years of your work experience. And then on top of that, anything else you've done, what your extracurriculars or co-curriculars are along with it, is what comprises your profile.
All right. So after that, after the resume part comes, what is the best way to choose which college you want to go in? What are all of the factors that you need to take into consideration to make this decision? Disha, Shruti?
So I think this answer would probably be different for different people. But that said, it depends on where you want to settle down, like which country. It also depends on the kind of job that you want to land up with after your MBA. And you can kind of look into the various schools and the kind of offers they get in those roles that you're looking to get. So that would also probably be something that you consider. Yeah, and so you can also, suppose you want to get into marketing and you know that a particular marketing professor teaches at the school, somebody who's in research, if you want to go into research at a later point of time, like these are all the factors that this is the kind of research which will really help you make that decision in terms of the school that you want to get into. And if you want to work for a while and then get into an MBA, you'll probably have to decide on the location of your school and like these other things also that you might want to consider. But this is what it was for me. Maybe Shruti can add more.
Disha is like correct here entirely because, like she said, it comes down to your research. where do you want to go after your MBA would decide which school you choose. So do your research. So every B school, at least in India, every B school releases some kind of a report that says these were the companies that came, these were the positions they offered, and these are the number of candidates that were chosen, right, for either the position or the company. And then you have pay and all of that as well. So this should give you a very good idea what industries favor which college, and then you'd accordingly aim for those colleges. That's a very simple way of going about it. You can, of course, be better. Is one level better is, do a little bit of research on LinkedIn. Look at where the alumni of this particular college have gone out of. So you can you search by alumni, and then you'll see what they've done, and then you would look at okay, so out of college, this is the first job they joined. All right, so this is something similar to what I want to do. So let me reach out to these alums, and more often than not, people will be more than happy to tell you what they did or why they did, or how this particular job or thinking came about. And those are things, and that is a lot of legwork that you would have to put in before you make your choice about which B school you're going to join. One good thing about India is, though, that you don't have to worry too much. You get into a college with a good enough brand, most doors open to you. But even then, if you're very particular or specific about what it is you want to do, then just reach out to alumni from those schools who have done it and understand whether these colleges offer the kind of support you need to make a similar transition, or whether they did it on their own. And then if they did it on their own, then how they did it. So those are things you have to understand before you go to college.
Thank you. So the next question is, how and when do you pick a specialization under MBA? If you could throw some light on the various specializations available, and do you pick it before college, or do you pick it before applying, or do you pick it during your course? So Shruti can take it.
So I'm a generalist. Ideally, please have a very good idea of what you want to do before you go to college, because once you are in college, you don't have time to think. You just do. I mean, I can give Ashwin a glimpse of his next year. He'll be attending roughly 4 to 6 classes a day, and you'd have to read at least 6 cases every day, have it prepared, do the analysis, run the Excel sheets, come up with a solution before you go to class, and the professor teaches you whether your solution is right or wrong. So you would be, it's a mad day. It's going to be that same mad rush for the entire 1 to 2 years. So please make your decisions about, roughly you should be like, I know I am tending towards a certain specialization before you enter college. Now, having said that, not all colleges offer a specialization. IIMA, for example, does not. But there's kind of a roughly known chapter. So you know that C tends towards finance, you know that A tends towards strategy. B, I'm not very sure of, but do that homework. Now, what are your specializations? They normally are operations, finance, strategy, and marketing. So I don't. Sorry, Shruti, did you want me to explain what each of these specializations is?
No, if you could tell us like the available specializations, then that would be good.
So these are normally your 4 available specializations, and these kick in only in your. So for me, it kicks in after my 3rd term. So when your electives start is when these specializations kick in, and then you choose these specializations. They are not the courses that you need to do for the specialization. If your college offers a specialization, you would have certain core courses under that specialization that you have to take. And if it is not such a hard and fast rule about specialization, then it's up to you to pick those relevant courses so that you earn the required number of credits you need towards a certain specialization. So you make sure that your timetable fits around finance if that's what you want to go into. You pick a lot of operations courses if you want to get into operations. You would, really have to chase your strategy professors to give you enough courses to get a strategy And similarly, things you do something similar for marketing and sales. So that's how it works. Kicks in the later half of your MBA. Your first few terms is always going to be core courses, and then when you come to the point of electives, you would pick your specialization, and you also then have enough time to get an idea because you get a flavor of everything in your core, and then you can decide what you think you should do versus what actually interested you, and then make that choice accordingly once you're in electives. Okay.
Thank you, Shruti. So, what is the best material for preparing for CAT? Ashwin, if you could take this over.
Uh, all right. So I didn't follow any material per se. I would say, see, at the end of the day, all of these material, I mean, what I did was I had taken time, I joined time for classroom coaching when I was initially started out. So I'd used that material. I just solved every single question in that set of books they gave, and I've moved forward. It doesn't really matter because see, at the end, it's about practice. So any source you get is good enough, but make sure that source is exhaustive. So the best way would be to go to any coaching center and get their set of CAT books, the modules that they give you, and you just go through all of them. You should be good enough. After that, the more important preparation for CAT is your mock exams. So make sure you take at least from two different sources. I had taken from Time and IMS. So you get maybe one mock every Saturday, one mock every Sunday. So that's 2 mocks a week, 25 weeks, and you're done. So it's about attempting for that two. I think it was 3 hours at my time. I think last year they changed it to 2 hours. So make sure you sit for those 3 hours, attempt the paper, and then make sure you understand the kind of areas you're weak at, the places where you're making mistakes, silly mistakes, whatever, and you try and improve. I mean, you don't go from an 80 to a 240 in a day. It takes time. You make errors, you improve on it. You see, you might have made. There might be some sort of a concept which you're not finding. See, again, this is 10th standard math, so most of it you already know. There might be some small thing you might have missed out, or you might be slightly unsure of, or there might be some kind of questions you're not able to understand. So that's when you spend a bit of time and work on those areas. So there's no material per se. That said, I know a lot of people go for Arun Sharma's books. I've heard for CAT, that's what most people use. I prefer only modules, so I can't, suggest anything other than that. Any coaching center module should be enough. See, again, it's very, very general. It's not JE. You don't have that many concepts or anything. It is very straightforward. It's math, English, and logic. Nothing more than that. So it isn't that tough. So it doesn't really need material per se, in my opinion.
Thank you, Ashwin. So the next question is, what's a good CAT or a GMAT score? What is a decent one? And does that play a very important role into getting into like ABC or ISB and other colleges of that range?
Shruti, you want to take this? One second, I'll just go for the CAT one this thing, right? So again, see, probably the difference between your CAT route and your GMAT route is that GMAT, everything's more qualitative. CAT, everything's numbers, right? It's only your CAT score, your 10th, your ACADS, your WorkX. Again, WorkX, they don't care about the type of WorkX. They just care about the number of months. That's how it is. The process is like that till you reach your interviews. It's when at your interview stage where everything becomes qualitative. So there's no good CAT score or great CAT score. If you're poor academics, 100 percentile might not be enough. Because I know people who made with 80 percentile, 85 percentile, and that's again, they probably have really good academics, good amount of diversity. I mean, so in the CAT world, diversity in academic diversity is being non-engineer. Being an engineer, you have zero academic diversity. So there is no other kind of and of course gender diversity. These are the only two kinds of diversity, and it's very black and white. There is no gray area here. So the reason I'm telling you this is, and each college has its own preference. For example, IIM Calcutta generally requires a higher CAT score because there is no academic difference. So anybody above 80 percentage, if you have, everybody is the same. So at IIM Ahmedabad, it's more different. At IIM Bangalore, they're very academic focused. They give a lot of weightage to work experience. So it's all college dependent. Make sure you go through each college's criteria first, and then the kind of score you require will depend on that. That said, just aim for the highest possible score, because I mean, if you get it at X, you get it at X plus 10, right? As simple as that. So there is no good grade score. That said, a 99.99 plus is insufficient if you're a general engineer male, which is probably what most of that was what I was. I required a 99.7 for a shot at Calcutta, 99.9 for a shot at Ahmedabad, and 100 percentile to just sit for the interview at IIM Bangalore. So that's how it is. It all depends on every person. So there's no good grade score as such.
Disha, you want to go ahead?
So with respect to your GMAT, it's since they consider, at least I can speak for ISB, they consider like your overall diversity profile. To tell you how the process happens, obviously, like Ashwin said, having X plus 10 is always better than having X. So do try to get the best score, and it'll help you offset your past grades because a certain percentage is assigned to that, but they also look at your overall profile. So if you've scored lower in the past, try and focus a lot on your GMAT score to really get that up. But that said, they also consider they want to create a diverse classroom with people from multiple backgrounds. So it's really good if you're, I don't know, working for a startup or you're doing something different. You've grown in your career, like Shruti mentioned, from where you started to where you are currently. All of these things will also add dimensions to your profile while you're applying. What is a good GMAT score? I think 720 would probably be like a good score to start applying. But if you can get over that, you can feel a lot safer when you put your application in the portal. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. So, what is something that made you stand out to get into such prestigious institutions? Shruti?
So like I didn't get a 720 score. I had like 10 points lower than that. But okay, for me, I know that it was, one is I had worked internationally for many, many years. I already had an international degree. I was leading teams from Malaysia, France, UK, China. So based out of Singapore. So I had a lot of things down in my resume that I knew that organizations and colleges would look for in the future, because teams are getting more global, and now I already had that global experience. I had done a lot of different things. So I had my bachelor's in electrical, but I had a master's which was very mechanical focused, and I had core industry experience, but that was something that was so high precision that it's not very common in India, or actually outside of a few centers. Added to that, I'd already made the industry shift, so I'd already been somebody who became a little agile. So I'd moved from a very core mechanical field and come into IT, and I had been able to blend my experience in manufacturing into experience in IT and create products that way. So so I knew what my selling points were before I went in, and I was able to highlight those quite well in all my applications. So I'm pretty sure roughly those were the reasons why I got it.
Thank you, Shruti. If Disha and Ashwin could also throw some light on their applications, then it'll be beneficial.
So I think in my case, also making the switch from biotech and like starting a career, like starting off with writing and then reaching a place where I was sort of driving the marketing for a small startup. And there was also proven experience because I joined the company when they just started and I sort of was with them until they sold to somebody in the US. And in terms of skill sets as well, it's always good to get a job role where you know you can put things in practice and get hands-on experience at this point in different things. So you can go into the course saying, XYZ in digital marketing, these are the number of campaigns I've run, like uh, these are the results I've got. So again, the results is also like a very important thing on your profile. If you can quantify that, you helped grow the company in a certain way or in your role from point A to point B, that makes a huge difference on an application. Um, and anything different that you've done, anything that shows initiative in getting your career off the ground and taking it to a certain level, whichever like industry or area you're in, that always helps. So if you can very clearly articulate that in your essay, it is really good. And if you're starting off now and you want to get some experience and then do an MBA, you should kind of try to take that journey where you sort of you grow as much as possible before you're able to apply to one of these courses.
All right. So, I've been saying from that end, right? It's very quantitative here. So, your first part is all numbers. So, obviously, I had a really good CAT score. I got to the interview process. The interview process is more interesting because this is at this point where suddenly things become qualitative and you have no idea what to do, right? So, it was so probably the reasons, or most of my interviews revolved around my work ex, which at that time was what 7 months, 6 months. I have 2 years now almost. So this is a year plus behind. So I had 6, 7 months of work ex, but I think what stood out there was one, I had done 3 internships, all three in massive MNCs, all three in totally different roles in different areas altogether. And I was working as a network consulting engineer, so this was a very customer facing role. I was working on pre-sales and stuff. So I had very diverse experience, even though it was for very, very short amounts of time. I think that was good. I had two pre-placement offers from two places, and so they were happy with all of that. Most of our discussions revolved around that. Other than that, again, so once you reach there, these are the only thing. It's about how well you can speak, how well you can articulate your thoughts, how well you can. It's basically you're convincing them that you're somebody who is fit to be among that set of people. You can understand what they're going to teach you. You can do well in an academic environment as well as post an MBA. You're somebody who will be a flag bearer of that college. So you have to. So whatever experience you have, you should be able to put it out to them, make sure they understand. And I think so. From my end, this was pretty much it. I had short but diverse stints in different firms, and that's what most of my interviews revolved around. And as for applications, all I had to do was tick, which colleges, like IIMA tick, IIMB tick. So there's no application as such when you're applying for via CAT. I think you have to write an SOP for Bangalore, but other than that, there's nothing much.
Thank you, Ashwin. So the next one is, as Ashwin said, there is added disadvantage if you're an engineering student because it doesn't give the diversity factor. So if you could elaborate on that, and if it matters if you apply for an MBA later, does it matter that you're an engineering student? So if Ashwin can take this, and then Shruti or Disha can add the other part. Thank you.
Okay, so look, like I told you, it's very cut and dried, black and white here. If you're again, this is dependent on college. For example, IIM Ahmedabad, to bolster their academic diversity, the interview call letters are given in such a way according to academic category. So engineering comes in one academic category, and more than 80% people who attempt CAT are engineers. So hence you get around 200 calls. So see, look at the number of seats, right? You have 200 seats, so they probably call into 3 times 600 people, of which 200 tend to be engineers, 100 from the other categories, being doctor or arts, if you come from commerce, whatever. So that way there's a distinct disadvantage. Then there are most colleges give you a small percentage if you are a non-engineer. So again, like I'm telling you, I mean, these are things which doesn't really affect you. Is it a disadvantage? Yes. That said, even then, you find most of these batches are 60-70% engineers. So that shows that the competition is that high in engineers, but engineers do make it eventually, right? So I don't think it's impossible just because you're an engineer. It's just a little tougher, that's all.
So, what Ashwin had said is quite true. For especially in India, that is true. Let me just give you a little more bad news on this. It becomes true whether you apply later globally also. So, if you're from India, it's expected that you're already smart, and all Indians are smart. And mostly all Indians are engineers and going in. So the kind of GMAT score you need if you're applying abroad will be much higher because again, no matter where you go, you're competing with, people like you, and people like you are engineers from India. Now, the highest GMAT score goes to Asian women. Asian women normally score the highest in the GMAT. So, in this case, that gender diversity can work against you. And it can be that, oh, you're a woman. Yes, it's expected that you get a very good GMAT score, and here are so many other women who have better GMAT scores than you. So, you have to have maybe a 750 plus over there, or as close to 800 as you can get. So in that way, you have to always be cognizant that you've done engineering to give you more opportunities, which means that more engineers have made use of opportunities, which means that there are going to be a lot more people with similar profiles. Of course, if you've done something very different and after engineering gone off the beaten road, good for you when it comes to an MBA application, but that's a gamble over there. So yeah, the competition is always going to be higher in that sense. So just work harder from the start. I mean, unfortunate truth, but yeah, you're going to have to do that. There's no escaping it.
Yeah. What type of internships would you recommend during summers and before an MBA? What do you think would be most suitable or appropriate for pursuing an MBA? Disha and Ashwin?
So I think you could probably explore if you haven't decided yet what specialization you want to go into, then you can probably explore those as internships before you do your MBA. If you've already decided the specialization, then do more internships in that specialization, I would say. Yeah, so that's it from my side.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. You should try out as diverse internships as possible. See, all of us have some sort of goal, right? When you start out, most people want, I don't know, Microsoft or Flipkart or whatever. Whichever comes to campus, you look for those. You can look up, outside campus as well. For those firms you feel you want to take it up. You don't like it, you can go somewhere else. You like it, maybe you want to come back. So this is very, very, very subjective. It also depends on what kind of opportunities you have. So there isn't any set line. From what I understand, there's no set line of what kind of internship you should take to do an MBA. So I mean, my case, I tried to be as diverse as possible, but it wasn't by choice. It was also by chance. I mean, the first internship I got was X, so I took it up. Then I went somewhere else because it came to campus. I did well. I got in. So I wasn't very choosy. I wasn't. So I think you should probably be a little more choosy. I wasn't, but I got really good firms. That's all I looked at that point.
Thank you. So the next question is, can you throw some light on the process of getting in? So after your entrance exams, then is there an interview phase? There's a group discussion, and all of that part. Can you just explain that process? Anyone can take this up.
Ashwin, I think this is for you.
All right. So okay, there are various exams. You have CAT, ZAT, IIFT, SNAP for different colleges. CAT generally is all your IIMs, a college called FMS Delhi. You have MDI Gurgaon. So these are your top colleges. You have ZAT for XLRI. You have IIFT. IIFT is Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, which is also pretty good college. So you have different exams. You take up whatever you feel like taking up. So the first time I attempted only CAT. Second time I attempted ZAT as well. So that's the entrance exam is your filter, right? You have 2 lakh people writing, and then your interview stage you have 600 people for 200 seats. So that's how the ratio is going to come down to. And then your second stage, you either have a GD, which is now reducing. Most colleges are getting rid of the group discussion. You have something called a WAT. That's a writing ability test. You'd be given a topic, and then you have to write an essay on it. You'd be given maybe 10-15 minutes to do so. IIM Ahmedabad is something called an AWT, which is an analytical writing test, which is where they give you a paragraph and you have to find out all the assumptions made and how the assumptions are wrong, etc. Then there is, so this generally happens on a single day. This is again till last year. This year, I believe everything's online. Till last year, everything was offline. So you had professors coming and staying at, probably they had identified around 8 cities where professors came, they stayed in a hotel, and you had to go, uh, to the hotel. You'll have a lot of maybe 10-15 people writing an essay, and then you'll have interviews one after another with 3 or 4 panels. So that's how it worked last year. Might not be the same this year. So that's a disclaimer. But I believe everything's online. So maybe you don't have the writing ability test at all. So then there's still some colleges which have a group discussion. I believe FMS and XLRI do. So that's pretty much it. And then you get an offer. So that's again, you probably have a month or so after your interviews where you're waiting for your offers to come in. And then you're either on a waiting list, you get an offer, you get rejected. If you get an offer, you pay up and you join. If you don't, you wait till your waiting list clears or you attempt next year. Unfortunately, you can attempt only once a year. So that's the problem.
Thank you, Ashwin. What does a year in MBA look like? Is it similar to the style of education in engineering, or is it more hands-on? Shruti and Disha?
No, it is absolutely nothing like engineering. Engineering is this lovely thing where you can, okay, maybe it's changed in the last decade, but in my time, you could attend classes, you get a couple of notes, you can get a senior's notes, and you'd still be fine in an exam, provided, of course, you're not looking to come into the top 5 or top 10 people in your class. That's what we used to do because we were like that. Engineering, and normally you go to class, somebody teaches you a concept, and maybe the next day you need to apply what you've learned or what you've been taught in a lab or something of that sort. And then, of course, you have an exam, which is mostly part of it is straight out of the textbook or straight out of your notes, and a part of it is what you've learned from it and how would you apply it. An MBA is not like that. So now the point of an MBA is not just teaching you, but it's also telling you how to do time management and how to do well under stress. So the whole point of the course is to create a very stressful environment for you where you're pushed to your last resource and your last hour of sleep and still be able to make decisions and calls and judgments and move ahead. So having said that, so what a day in my life is like, I'd have roughly at the peak of the MBA, you would have about 6 classes a day. And 6 classes a day is about an hour and a half a class. So most of your day is gone in classes. But you don't turn up to a class to learn. You turn up to a class to discuss. So the day before, or likely the night before, you will read a case which would describe a situation in an organization, and these would roughly be anywhere between 20 to 30 pages long. You would have to do your first degree analysis of what is going wrong. You would have numbers to work with, financial statements, or some kind of numbers to crunch and decisions to make, and you use these numbers to back up your decisions. And then you would go to class, and then so the class, a couple of people in the class and the professor would discuss them. These were the reasons why I made such a decision, and this is what I would want to do. And then the professor and you would debate essentially on why this is the right decision, what could be better decisions, or what could have been a worse decision, and what you want to learn from this and keep in mind for the future. And then you do this for 6 classes every day, day in and day out. You don't have a weekend. There are no such things as Saturdays and Sundays here. Honestly, I know today is a Sunday only because I'm having this talk. Otherwise, every day and every month blends into the other. And it's a very rigorous and hectic course. So you don't have breathing time, you don't have an off time. But like any college, you will still find time to have fun and socialize and things of that sort. But at the cost of something else, always. That's what a day in, at least a day in college is right now for us. With the pandemic, it's kind of different, but I think this is what it would be like pre or post the pandemic.
Thank
Okay,
you.
but let
So
me
the
just add one last thing. So your exams would also be, it's kind of like exams are always kind of like a lab. You will be given a case to analyze in 3 hours and give decisions for in 3 hours and rate it based on your decisions. So you can't like say they taught me this and I apply this formula here to get the right answer. It never works like that. So you would have to apply frameworks that you've learned not just in this course, but also in other courses to come to a good decision. So that's how it will differ.
Thank you, Shruti. That was really insightful. So the next question is also for you. When did you decide that you want to pursue a master's after your engineering, and how did you decide the stream? And if you could just talk about that journey as well, it might be helpful.
Okay. So I think I always, to some extent, okay, so I come, like Ashwin said, I come from a family of people who have, put a lot of importance into education. Although not too many people had a master's when I was interested in doing one, it kind of seemed like the natural thing to do. So I gave my GMAT in my third year, I believe. Now, by that time, I had already done like a rough kind of internship and training programs at BHEL. In my last year, I did an internship with, my last semester I spent with GE. And so I had a rough idea of that I wanted to stick with my core stream, and I enjoyed it and I liked it. I was in electrical and electronics, but I knew also that in India, electrical electronics would mean that I'd have to go into BHEL or maybe Caterpillar or something of that sort, and even that wouldn't be exactly what I wanted. I knew that I wanted it to be a more I found my entire bachelor's very theoretical. I knew that whatever I did my master's, I wanted to be very practical. So initially, I thought that I would do my master's in biomedical engineering, and I went to Duke in USA for that. Did it for about a year and realized that cutting into cats and cutting into frogs was not going to be. I couldn't stomach it beyond a certain point. So, and it again wasn't practical enough. So I did some more research and then transferred into Nanyang in Singapore and did a master's in something called smart product design, which basically teaches you everything you need to know, right from how do you design an interface to then how do you do the mechanical aspects of the design, how do you mirror that with the electrical parts of the design, then how do you decide to create, how does that impact your manufacturing system, which will eventually make it. It taught us about 3D printing. It taught us, basically it gave me a smorgasbord of everything that you need to know to build out a product. And using that, and luckily, my love for medical and, such things remained. And I was able to get a job in a company which was building medical devices. So kind of a patchwork of a story, but kind of made it all fit towards the end. But yeah, in my third year of engineering, I knew that I would be doing a master's, and I started working for and giving my GRE. Right, so I gave my GRE then, and I got a pretty good score and applied to quite a few colleges at that time. And like the GRE score is also valid for I think 2 to 3 years, so that helped in all my admins. Your letter of recommendations become very important. So whether it is from a boss at an internship or some professors in college, please make sure you keep those relationships healthy and going. The amount, so how well your professors do is very important in the kind of weightage that a college you're applying to will give your recommendation. So please make sure that you are in the good books of your heads of departments, your senior professors who have a lot of PhDs, who release good papers. Their recommendations carry a lot of weight. So keep those relationships alive and going. But yeah, I did have problems with that. I remember my professors were very nice and very sweet in college. So they were amazing. So at least I didn't have to worry about that. But I'm not so sure about whether it's still like that or not. So they become a very crucial factor for a master's when your master's admits.
Thank you, Shruti. How practical is it to look into an MBA almost immediately after a bachelor's in computer science, assuming that the goal is to become a quantitative analyst? Ashwin, maybe you can take this up.
I don't know. I mean, if you're that sure of what you want to do, you probably have to look at colleges which get companies coming in for that sort of a role, and then maybe look at that. But look, I hadn't done it that way, so I can't really comment on it. On whether you can get a college, definitely. Whether they're offering roles of quantitative analysts, I don't know. You get reports from all of these colleges which are public, so take a look at that and then take a decision.
Thank you, Ashwin. So the next question is from the chat. Is MBA or MIM the only good option besides MTech after engineering? Anyone can take this.
I mean, the obvious other option would be work. If you are not sure about what to do, just go in and work in anything. It'll even if it and there is no such thing as something that doesn't add to your resume. You don't have to show that at day one I knew I wanted to be a XYZ, and so my entire career has been only following that track. It's great if that happens, but it's not really necessary. You can do 20 different things, but when you're doing these applications, the only thing that matters is that you are a good storyteller and that you connect all your dots in a sensible and reasonable manner. You can do a master's, you can do whether you do an MTech, MSc, MBA, it's entirely up to you. And finally, what you enjoy doing. So, what you enjoy doing should also matter in your decision making, not just what you think is going to give you the best chance in the future. Y'all are still very young, and you can keep redrawing and rehashing your future as many times as you want.
That's good to hear. That's very affirmative to hear. And that wraps this session up. We've gathered a lot of insight, as speakers, as co-hosts as well, not just the viewers. And it's been an extremely educational experience to have this talk with you guys. We've learned a lot from what questions we had, from what questions our viewers had. And we look forward to having more sessions with you, maybe being sure about what we ourselves want to do. I mean, this has given us a lot of clarity. So that's great. Shruti?
And if you all want to add something, some closing statements, some words of wisdom for all our viewers, then that would be great.
I think all I'm going to say at the end is I remember being at the same crossroad in life that I think all of you all are standing at right now. I mean, the listeners at least. Don't worry. The world is a very, very big place. It might seem like the only big successful people are the ones who made it to these big colleges and are doing these MBAs and things of that sort. You'd find that isn't very true. even after I graduate or Ashwin graduates and Disha graduated out of these very big colleges, a lot of our bosses don't come from any such big place, and they're doing very well in life. The things that really matter are the kind of person you become, how well you network, and honestly, how good you are at talking to people, storytelling. Not that you make up stories, but how well you communicate and you're able to get your ideas across to people. I think these are three big skills that even a B school teaches you, but it's something that you can pick up on your own. So don't be too stressed out at this point in your lives. You all are young. You try a little, live a little. Even if you stumble and think you made a mistake, there are so many opportunities out there for anybody to do what they want. So don't be too worried.
Also, maybe like this is very cliche, but I know like the process is long. Just make sure that you find time to enjoy along the way as well. And one thing that I've learned from life is, what you think you want and what you actually want may be different things. So, like, always try to keep listening to yourselves and understanding how you're reacting to your surroundings, or how you actually feel about what you're working on or what you're doing generally, even. And, like Shruti said also, if you stumble, it's absolutely okay. Like, all of us have stumbled in many ways, I think, so far, and we're doing fine. So I'm sure all of us will do fine. Yeah. So thanks so much for having us here. And
Yeah, I mean, thank you for conducting this. I mean, I remember when I was looking for an MBA, I had no idea who I should be contacting and stuff like that. So thank you for this kind of an opportunity, both so that I could talk to juniors. I mean, I've had people messaging asking about, what do I do to get into a good B school and all of that. So thanks for that, first off, and thanks for Shruti and Disha too. I mean, I got an idea what I would, something of what would happen the next couple of years, what would happen after that too. So thanks for that. And for me, look, I was in very similar situation 2 years ago, two, three, but 1.5 years ago too, where I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I just looked to do, you have an overall goal, you have, that some sort of thing, and then you just move forward. That said, always have in plan A, B, C, D, E. If some, and a lot of times, especially if you're looking to go by the CAT route, it is it's something you cannot say. You think this person has a perfect profile. It doesn't make in a person who looks like doesn't have that great a profile makes it in. It's very, very, it's not random. There's a lot of luck in this process, a lot of luck, be it right at CAT or because you could be really good, you might be doing really well and you end up with a bad day on CAT. So that can happen as well. And this is a once in a year thing. So don't think of it as more than the pressure. Go in with your plan A, B, C. Make sure you have a job, be it on campus or off campus. If you're applying now, that is very important. Because I remember I sat for placements purely because I thought to be interview experience before the IIM interviews that will happen later. I was that confident. Of course, my interviews in campus went much, much better than what it was when I went to the IIMs that year. And so make sure you have a job backup, or whatever backup you have. Make sure you have a backup. That is very, very, very crucial because, I mean, when I start, and your opinion changes because 2018 when I attempted CAT, my aim was, directly after BTech, I want to do an MBA. I don't want to work. And then last year I decided, what, I want to work another year. I'm really enjoying my job. So it changes, and that's a good thing, I believe. So keep your backups. That's very, very, very important. Reduces stress a little bit. And yeah, make a lot of friends on the way. I made a ton of friends while I was preparing for CAT. Even now, that's in my best part of the journey. More than me getting into one of the best B schools, it was the kind of friends I made. Even now, when I join in, I have like 10 seniors who are very, very close with me before they got into a B school. So that's a good thing. Make a lot of friends.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being a part
Thank
of
you.
this.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
thanks, guys.